Hey guys, it's Nick here with Folks Custom Cranks. Episode 2 of the Baitcast. We wanted to talk about some old school baits. As many of you know, I'm into painting old school baits, whether it be a wiggle wart, speed trap, baby one minus, which is the topic of today's episode. All those old school vintage baits that you guys love, I love, even though they're older than me. So if you followed me for the last couple of years, last good many years, that's kind of been my specialty. I'll take the old baits like that. We'll strip down their paint. You know, most of the time I try to buy ones that are all good cosmetically, like they're not actually beat up. Just the paint might be beat up. Of course, we're going to change that. So you guys have really loved that. I've found kind of a cool little thing I can do to offer to you guys. So it's been a very good relationship that I've built with my customer base doing that. So today we're going to talk about one of the most popular baits for shallow water fishing and probably the king of grass fishing with a crankbait, which usually don't go two and two together, is the Mann's Baby One Minus. So a couple different things. We're going to talk about the history of the bait first. Later in the video, of course, if you followed me, you've kind of seen some sneak peeks and some stuff I've shown you before. We'll get into that later in the video. Completely separate, different topic and everything. So we'll get through the history of the Baby One Minus. Of course, I don't know everything about it. We have Google here. I've Googled a lot of stuff myself. I've learned a lot from doing this for 10 years or so. Had some friends in the industry and just some other bait junkies, I guess you can call us, that know everything old school bait. There's Facebook groups out there for vintage baits, and there's Facebook groups for Baby One Minuses, even man stuff. So that stuff's pretty cool. We'll just start talking about it. Mann's Bait Company was started by Tom Mann. I believe it was in the 50s, honestly. Mason's going to Google that just to make sure we're correct. So started by Tom Mann. Of course, everyone knows all the worms and everything that they've built over the years. I've been a staple in everyone's tackle box till about as of recent, just because they went out of business finally when they were purchased. I believe that was this past year. So you have a date on, is it 56, 58?
Yep, 1956 by Tom Mann in Alabama.
Yep, Alabama. I believe even till when they closed the doors, they're still based in Eufaula, so it's pretty cool. American-built company, especially with today, everything, everything's changed since then, but everything they did was made in America, the American proud, so they were, 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, really an industry leader. So really, I mean, probably most everyone who bass fishes has heard of Mann's, probably owns some Mann stuff throughout the years, and so they've just been a really good company that's stuck around forever until as of recent. The current owner, I think, passed away. Don't quote me on that. And then whoever inherited the company didn't want to go forward with it or wasn't interested in bass fishing, so they sold it off, unfortunately. But we'll talk about later in the video that there's some things coming, and I don't want to talk too much about it early on just because I don't want to get in trouble. I have been not threatened, but I've been brought some interesting comments and emails sent about what we'll talk about later. So the Baby One Minus, of course, 3 different series. I believe. Let's see. We got some an old clipping here from. I believe this was in a Bassmaster magazine. So it's pretty cool. This is an original, not a reprint. I just bought it on eBay because I'm into collecting fishing lures, like many of you. So we'll get information off of this as well as other stuff. Got 3 different models. You have the full size One Minus. It's a little big, obviously. I'm not sure how much it weighs. It's 5/8 ounce. It's only got to dive a foot. That's where the Baby One Minus really is best at. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So 3 different series. You have the full size One Minus, I call it, the mid One Minus, one of my favorite baits. Of course, the Baby One Minus, the smallest one, is my favorite bait. But the mid One Minus doesn't get thrown much, and it's a really good size bait. This one I've caught fish on. My opinion, it's a little too big for what we do up here in Pennsylvania, but I know plenty of smallmouth, largemouth spots have been caught on this bait. So pretty much the topic of this one's the Baby One Minus. Not going to talk about the One Minus full size as much, just because I don't have much experience with it, so I don't want to tell you this, that, whatever about it. Most of my experience is on the mid One Minus, the Baby One Minus. How I came to love this bait is, back in the day of fishing, I forget if it was bass or ML or FLW at the time, but just fishing, not club tourneys, not BFLs, just like regionals. I don't know what they were called, but you'd just be pay $50. You're a co-angler. You go get fish some different places. Me, my dad, and a couple of his buddies would travel around, just being co-anglers, traveling around fishing tournaments like that, just to get us out of where we fish normally. We live in Pittsburgh, so we fish Cross Creek, which is my home lake, just right by the house, and then we fish Lake Erie, which is best fishing in the state. There's no need to fish anywhere else other than Lake Erie, but we fished the Potomac. It was first time ever fishing anywhere more than 2 hours outside the house. I'd say I was like early high school, maybe like ninth, 10th grade. We went out there, did some research like we all do before you go to fish anywhere. You learn, okay, you need to throw baby one minus. It's a really good crankbait in shallow grass. The reason for that is because of how round the bait, specifically the nose, is. If you've thrown a baby one minus, there's just something special. It's almost like a rattle trap bait, where yes, grass will kind of stick to it, but with just a twitch of the rod, it comes right off. A lot of crankbaits, square bills, deep divers, anything else really, for whatever reason, you just cannot rip that grass off. But there's something magical with this bait, and there's something magical with a rattle trap style bait that just you get a little piece of grass hung up, whether it's on the hook, whether it's right on the bill, where, if you fish grass a lot, grass hangs up right on your line tie and such. That's where, just for whatever reason, grass collects, but you just snap your rod, you're free and clear, bait's back to running. It's called the 1 minus, of course, because it only dives a foot or less. Weighing them down and stuff, you can get them deeper, but out of the box, fishing it just how it's supposed to be fished is 1 foot or less. So that's really cool. Fishing a lot of places before you didn't fish a crankbait, and it's not really a wake bait. Personally, I haven't had much success throwing a wake bait. I don't know why. All my confidence is in this style bait where you can wake it if you want, but it's only going to dive a foot. That way, if you ever get hung up on a log, you're going to get it out. You just poke it with your rod tip, you get it out. So around just places like the Potomac, shockingly and funny enough, Cross Creek fishes a lot like the Potomac, where it's just largemouth. It's grass, it's mud, and logs. That's all you got. You got muddy water, you got grass, you got logs. And if you fish the Potomac or know any history of tournaments on Potomac, the baby one minus has made that's where it got its name from, for being popular in bass fishing. So I believe we're going to get into some info here. We'll kind of just cover some B-roll while I look this up, because I have some messages on my phone from buddies of mine on Facebook groups and such that help me look into the history. I'm good with 90s and so on, but I don't know everything about when the baby one minus came out. Let's see. So the very first baby one minus came out in 1989, so that's pretty old. I'm born in 97, so this bait's 13 years older than me. How you tell if it was a very first production run? You can go off the split ring color and everything. I don't know much about that. My buddy here does, but there's 3 ways. You have 2 different models of when Mann's made it to tell if it's the old ones. The easiest way we'll show a close-up is on the one side. It'll say Mann's. It'll just say Mann's. It's just textured right on the body as their logo. The other side, it'll say Baby One Minus. This is referred to a double stamp Baby One Minus. These are the old ones, the original ones. They're made out of butyrate plastic. Started in '89. Looks like they changed about 2000. So this bait ran for 10 or so years, give or take. Got lead rattles. You can hear it in the mic, hopefully. All that good stuff from back in the day. And the butyrate plastic and the lead rattles, for whatever reason, for American-made baits, this bait's made in America, it was just a magic combo. We'll talk about that later in the video as well, getting back to the lead and butyrate. So most American baits made in the U.S., or Mexico, speed traps and stuff, wiggle worts, you have Mexico, so it's North America. Made with butyrate plastic, which is a different type of plastic than our ABS type plastics that we have today. It's a lot more dense of a plastic. Best way to describe it is the denser your plastic, the slower rise it has. Easiest way to see the difference is in a wiggle wart. I throw an old wiggle wart a lot. If you look at an old wiggle wart compared to a new wiggle wart, you stop winding it. That old pre-Rapala wiggle wart just has a lot slower of a rise to it. So it's just I wouldn't say heavier, but more dense plastic. With it being different density, it does make a different noise. Stainless, lead, whatever. So it will have that different noise. And I believe I had some info that said claimed it's made actually with not completely made out of it, but one of the materials in the butyrate plastic. I'm no expert on butyrate plastic. Maybe we can cover that in a different video. But it's made with wood or wood grain or wood particle. So it's super strong. It's way stronger than ABS plastic. It stinks. If you have a box of old Normans, old Wiggle Warts, old Baby One Minuses, anything Lord Jensen, you open that tackle box, that sucker stinks, and it's not a good smell. But to a fisherman, that's a good smell. It's means you got the good baits. It means you got the money baits, high money baits. Just butyrate has that stink to it. I don't know why. We'll look into if Mason can just Google butyrate plastic, but we'll cover that in a whole different video. We'll just give you guys a little tidbit of it. So both the double stamp, of course, is made with the butyrate plastic. Single stamp is made with butyrate plastic. Every Baby One Minus model Mann's made till they close was made with butyrate plastic. Besides the Elite series, we'll talk about that once we get done with the double stamp. So everything's made with butyrate plastic, being made in America. I'm not sure if they're not able to produce the butyrate plastic overseas or if it's just the North American plastic. But do you have anything pulled up on butyrate?
Yep. Butyrate, as it is commonly known, is a cellulose ester modified by using butyric and acetic acids, producing cellulose acetate butyrate, or CAB. Unlike other common synthetic plastics, the cellulosic plastic are not manufactured by polymerizing a monomer.
Okay,
We're getting
so
into
if you're a chemist,
here.
You probably know what that's talking about. Us,
instead, they are produced by the chemical modification of cellulose, a natural polymer.
Okay, so cellulose, I know, is a plant material, wood. So that's the connection. Of course, if you're a chemist or if you want to comment below, if you can put two and two together, all I know is that has something to do with a wood pulp, something along those lines. That's why you see lots of baits in bone coloring, it's called. Rattle traps are made of bone, Wiggle Warts made of bone. But they do make clear butyrate plastic, which all the baby ones, at least to my knowledge, are all made with that clear butyrate plastic. So that's the double stamp. Like I said, easiest way to tell is that right on the side says Baby One Minus. And then we'll pull out a single stamp. So they switched over the mold. Let me see why. We'll pull out a single stamp first. There we go. So you can obviously hear this. That's not a good example. We'll pull out a. All right, perfect single stamp. Single stamp, side by side, double, single. Sounds just about the same. It has those lead rattles in it. Mainly the only difference, it fishes the same, looks the same. The only difference is on the one side, it just says Mann's. On the other side, it doesn't say Baby One Minus. These, I believe they changed the mold. I'll look into it and see what the years were, why they changed the mold, but I believe all they did was literally just grind this down on the mold, the Baby One, and just change it to a smooth side. Not sure why. So everything, same butyrate plastic, fishes the same, old school bait. Of course, the double stamp's worth a little bit more just because it's the older one, but if you're wanting an old school Baby One Minus and you don't want to pay $25 plus, get the single stamp. It's a little bit cheaper. And I do, of course, have a whole bucket here. We'll show some videos. Have a bunch more at the house. These are all just ones I've bought since I got home from shows and through show season. I do buy some baits or do some trading of baits. So on average, every year I probably buy and paint and sell 100 to 200 plus old single stamps and double stamp Baby One Minuses. So there is a lot of them out there. You just got to pay up for them, know how to buy them, where to buy them. You can go to yard sales and find them. So it's not like it's too hard to buy them, but buying them for cheap is is hard. So doing it as a business aspect, I just can't go on eBay and buy them for $30 because normally I sell a double stamp for 25 painted. So business wise, you have to make some sense when you buy and sell stuff. But fishing wise, you can find these on eBay. You can find them everywhere. You can find them from me once they're custom painted as well. This whole bucket will be painted this summer. I have probably another 100 at the house that I've bought to paint. So the single stamp, not much to talk about it. It's basically a double stamp. To my knowledge, I fished them all. It's same. It fishes the same as the double stamp. So from there, we get into, let's see, the mold was changed, and it's the silliest reason, and coming from a painting standpoint, I hate why it changed, but the reason they went from the smooth side, I call it, there's no texture on the side, whatever, it makes for painting baits look really good because your paint shows all the detail, versus if you have a bait like a Lucky Craft, like any bait that has those 3D texture scales, that really swallows a lot of the paint. like the paint detail, especially with an airbrush. You're doing stuff so fine. So just from a painting standpoint, I'm disappointed that, of course, this smooth-sided mold got changed to a textured mold. But if you know how to paint and get around that, you can make it look just as good. So the reason the mold changed from the smooth-sided to the texture side was due to the rise of popularity in Lucky Craft baits. This is talking 2000. Let's see. 1998, 2000, 2002, that time of when they were produced. Lucky Craft came out. We all know if you fished. My dad, of course, was fishing during this time. I was just in middle school. Uh, or, if it's early 2000s, I wasn't even fishing yet. I was like 4 years old. But Lucky Craft came out. Lucky Craft was a Japanese company, top of the line. American market loved all that stuff. Of course, we still do love American or Japanese baits and JDM style baits. I sell them on the website and everything. But those came out, those exploded. I don't know exactly how much they were selling for back in the day, but like say you went to buy in 2004, 2003, you went to buy a Lucky Craft Stacey, one of my favorite jerk baits, you're paying $15, where at the time American bait companies were selling their baits for like $6, $7, $8 most for a crankbait. So talk about double the price. Everyone saw those. They say double the price. It's better quality. Of course, it was very good quality at the time. But Lucky Craft, when they came out, had those 3D scaling on the side, which in early 2000s wasn't seen. You mainly just had smooth-sided baits like Bombers, all those companies back in the 90s and 2000s that were top of the line. Strike King, Bomber. You can go on and on. Of course, my mind slipped me now of all those companies. But so Lucky Craft had those cool-looking 3D sided lures, where it looks more realistic, looks more like a fish, more looks like a bait fish with those scales on the side. So Mann saw at the time that sales were declining. They were like, okay, let's change it up. So they came out with the textured bait, and they called it the Elite Series. The Elite Series was made in China. I don't know if that was the very first bait to come out with the texture, but I know the Elite Series was the only ones made in China. Now, unfortunately, the Elite Series baits were just not very good. They were made in China, so they weren't made with butyrate. The bill, you can tell the bill is like almost, it's tiny. It's like take your pinky nail and cut it in half. It's just such a small bill. And that was the main killer of that bait, is that bill was just too small to where if you ripped it out of grass, it would just come up out of the water and blow out and everything. So they saw they needed that wider bill and not to produce them in China anymore. So they went back. The Elite Series, of course, if you fish Mann stuff, the Elite Series is no good. I mean, it works fine, but like if you're fishing their own grass, it just blows out. They went back to that wider bill, the same as what's on the single and double stamp. So they have that same bill with that texture body, unfortunately, because they already changed the mold. They didn't produce a new mold when they went from the smooth side to the textured side. They only had one or two molds of these in total ever to exist. So what they did is they just sent their old molds in to get textured, put into them. So that old mold, the double stamp mold and the single stamp mold are gone. They're now the textured mold. It's the same mold, just it got changes done to it. So the bait's the same, just has those textured grooves on it. As long as it's not the Elite Series, the textured ones seem to fish fine. Those are the ones I did last year through shows when I had 1,000 of them that I was able to find. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Believe that's pretty much everything Mann's to think of. They went out of business. Let's see, it's 2025. I'd say 2023, 2024 is when you really start seeing it and saw Mann stuff pretty much leave the shelves, unfortunately. So that pretty much covers the Baby One Minus. I do want to get into one color. These are all stock colors I have. We're going to paint those. But I did just a cool piece of history, especially on the Potomac. The guy who won a tournament kind of made this color famous. It's slipping me. It's going to be really hard to look up. It's like you got to be a fisherman to know it. So I believe they called this color right here Gray Ghost. It has a gray back, pearl sides, and orange belly. Really simple shad color. Works well, obviously. And on the Potomac's pretty dirty. I comment his name below because as soon as I see it, I'll know I remember it. what this guy did was he took a gray ghost and he took chartreuse spike it. Many of you know it can color. It obviously colors soft plastic, but it colors hard baits. So what he did was he dipped that gray ghost into a bottle of chartreuse spike it, and then you had what became to known as lemon shad. Lemon shad. When we were at the Potomac, Richmond Fishing Expo, which is really close to Potomac, everyone wanted my version of lemon shad. Not going to make that mistake. Next year when we're going back, I'm going to have my version of lemon shad. So it's a really popular color around there, just because Potomac's muddy for the most part, tannic water. You can see side by side the lemon shad, aka gray ghost dipped in chartreuse dye, is a lot brighter. So being the fishing industry, what they did is they said, you know what? Obviously it works. It won a tournament. People want it. Literally at the factory, they did not paint lemon shad any different. So what they did is they painted their gray ghost. They had it finished, clear coated, ready to go. Right before they put in packaging, they just had a bucket of I'm assuming Mike's chartreuse dye. They said I heard it from the horse's mouth from factory worker. They said they just dipped their gray ghosts in the chartreuse dye, let it dry. There you go. There's lemon shad. So that's a cool little piece of history. We're going to clean up the old baits, and we're going to talk about maybe the future of this bait, and we'll go from there. So we'll cut that, and we'll go from there. So now we get into the future and of what's going on now with this bait. I'm not going to call it the Baby 1 Minus anymore. Of course, the Mann's was purchased by another company. Not going to say the company it is. If you look into it, you can see it. I worked for that company, design colors for them. They were not so happy when they found out I got these baits, so I'm not going to say any names. We're not going to use any company names. We're not going to call this bait what it was called in the past. It'll make sense later in the video when we get into that. So we'll just call this bait as the Babe for now. We need a new name suggestion for it. Later in the video, we'll ask. We'll go from there. Maybe you guys can suggest some names. Pick out a good name. We'll go from there. So the Babe, I was in early 2024. This past year, I had the opportunity to buy 1,000 blanks made by the past company, made in America, made with butyrate plastic. The only difference was after I should have talked about earlier, is the older double stamps and single stamps have lead rattles. When they switch it to the groove side, they use a stainless steel rattle. You can kind of hear the difference. That's the stainless, and this is a lead rattle. So lead's a lot more duller than the stainless. Whether you believe in that or not, who cares? I am a believer that lead makes a better sound with the butyrate plastic, but that's whatever. That's other stuff. So I had the opportunity to buy 1,000-ish of these baits already made. Already had the stainless steel rattles in them. Painted all 1,000 of them for sale for you guys. Was extremely. I knew it would be a popular bait, but I didn't expect how crazy everyone would want these because of the recent news of the company being bought out and bait being discontinued for good, for now at least. So painted 1,000 of those. I do shows, as many of you know, throughout the winter. Starts in January. It usually ends in March. I bought these and painted them all, I'd say probably by July of last year. And I saved about 500 of them that I painted for shows. I was like, I need these for shows just because I want to make sure guys that show up to see us in person, see our little pop-up shops that we do, have an opportunity to buy them. Whether you want to buy it, great. If you don't want to buy it, no feelings hurt, whatever. So those 500 that I put for the online site and was shipping out online, those lasted maybe a month. I was able to trickle some more online, ended up stealing some from the show stock to put them online. I was just blown away of how popular the new, this bait is, with all the news and everything of it being discontinued. So awesome opportunity. Never knew if I was ever going to do that again, just because I wasn't there at the factory. I had nothing to do with when they got bought out with what was left. So those 1,000 baits were left by the company that bought out the old company. It's going to get a little tricky talking about company. So whatever. If you follow along, it'll make sense. So when that company came in, they bought out. They took most of the stuff with them, but as you do when you move with anything, you said this junk right here, basically just junk. They were like, this junk, we don't want to take it with us. They just said, it is what it is. Someone can grab it. We don't care. What they did leave behind was a heck load of these baits. So they left behind those 1,000 pre-assembled, taped even for me, which is beautiful. Painted those. These are the only two I have from last year. I literally sold everything I had just because guys wanted them. Guys were like, "Hey, do you have any in your personal box?" I did have a box full of them. These are We were looking right before we recorded. These are the only two baits I could come up with from my personal box. Folk Smash, I called it, of course, and then this one I never sold on it. It's just my first personal favorite color, Croggill Shad, especially out at Cross Creek. So that was crazy. I was like, man, that was awesome. I was able to do that. Feel honored to be able to paint the last batch of those baits ever to be on the market, to my knowledge. Uh, Guys kept hitting me up. Hey, you gonna get more? We want more, whatever. So I was like, I'm gonna try, but I'm pretty limited on what I could do to bring that bait out without being the company that bought out Mann's company. Um, so the opportunity came up during show season when I was completely out of stock on the Babe, we'll call it, to buy roughly about 4,000 of these disassembled bodies. So these are pretty cool. These are, I never knew these existed. These were in the junk pile, of course, that I was able to buy from their plant in Eufaula, Alabama. So these were left behind. They said, screw these baits. They don't want nothing to do with them. That was a big mistake, obviously, because these baits are very popular, and I feel it's cool that I saw that another man's garbage is gold. Literally, I mean, these were just, they said do whatever you want, burn them, whatever. So I took those baits, the old ones, of course. We did a great thing with them. Opportunity came up to buy roughly 4,000 lefts, 4,000 rights of these. So that's why we need a new name. I'm not going to call it the Baby One Minus. That's the old bait. I understand another company owns the rights to that bait, so we're not going to advertise it as that name. I need a new name. The Babe came to mind. B11 minus or F1 something along those lines. This is literally a work in progress. These you're gonna see. This is just beginning. Since we've been home from shows, I haven't had any time to work on these. So I'm going on a fishing trip this week. I'm helping some guys in Erie. Once we get back from Erie, I'm still gonna be fishing in Erie, of course, but come home, we're going to get back to painting. We're going to get back to producing these. I've been kind of prototyping them for the past month or so since I've been home. Of course, been doing a lot of lawn work and stuff. Thank you to the in-laws for helping us with all of our lawn work at the house. But so this has been a kind of a project I've kept under wraps. Close buddies of mine, you've heard about these, but publicly, I really haven't said much about these just because I've not gotten in trouble, but I've gotten threatened in the past. So hopefully this doesn't bring forward anything along those lines. Not using any former names. Want to get that clear. This is my own bait. These were left in a trash pile, so these are my bait. These are not another man's bait. These are Folks bait, and that's why we started a Folks Bait Company. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So the cool thing about them being disassembled, of course, it's a heck of a lot more work, but I get to truly customize this bait. We talked about before, the old ones had lead rattles, and in my mind, butyrate plastic, which these are made with butyrate. These weren't made in China. These were made in America, which is a big part of the new bait logo, new company logo. But so these are butyrate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change up the internals on them. Baby One Minuses always came with a rattle, just a standard rattle, with a lead BB, changed to stainless. Roughly 10, 11 BBs in there. That's very popular. Of course, everyone loved it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have three different models of these. We're going to have a rattling, which is going to be lead rattles. We're going to have the cancer stuff on there, whatever. But we're fishermen. We literally touch lead every day. We're not going to go into that, but if you're a fisherman, you're used to lead. So first model will be all lead. Second model will be silent. Everyone, especially around spooky fish, wants a silent bait. So what I will have to do, I haven't gone through anything other than the rattling as far as prototyping. I will have to keep the weight in there because the rattles do add a lot of weight to the bait. It weighs roughly about a quarter ounce, which sounds light, but being as small and like baseball shaped, golf ball shaped as this is, it casts fine and everything. So we're gonna have the rattles. We're gonna have the silent that is the same weight as the rattling, so it doesn't affect the action. Action's the same as it used to be. Everything's the same action wise. Then we're going to have the one knocker rattle. I've done a one knocker square bill for since I've been in business, honestly, for 10 plus years. One knocker rattle trap like the Excalibur, XR50, XRK50, most popular rattle trap on the market. That, of course, has a tungsten one knocker. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have, I've already found a source, and it's been a little tricky to find source, especially for lead stuff. But the one knocker, I believe, will be a tungsten one knocker. So it's actually a buckshot casing, is what it is. Most of the stuff, most of the weights back in the day of how they were produced at Mann's was literally just made with lead shot. What you'd find in a shotgun. That brings me to this. So this pretty much, these are just BBs that you buy. You can see this is Crossman. This is just a BB gun BBs. These, of course, are lead coated in copper. Just for the prototyping process, that's what I use because this is they use stainless BBs at the plant when they're made. So I knew weight wise, I weighed these out. Diameter wise, everything's the same as the BB size. That was just my first. I use these just because this is what they are made with before they came out. But I knew I wanted the lead rattle in them, so it took a while. Literally off and on, been researching into different suppliers for a true lead BB, and I have them. They're coming on their way. It's coming from a smaller company, so it's been about 2 weeks. It's a lot trickier than you would think to find a true BB that is lead. I don't know if that's because of new age stuff, lead not being the best chemical looked at or substance you can handle, but it is what it is. We're fishermen. So I do have the lead BBs on the way. The cool thing about this bait is the ballast weights is the same as the rattling weight. So that lead BB that's going to be used as ballast will be the same. That's the rattle. And then in the one knocker and in the silent option, it'll still have that lead ballast weight, which will be glued in. It won't make any rattling, and then you can have either the one knocker with tungsten, or tungsten, which is it's a buckshot. It's going to be a little bit bigger. Haven't played around with that yet. Of course, being a buckshot and being only one rattle, I got to weigh everything out. Got to buy a lot of lead to measure everything. I got a gram scale and everything to make sure it doesn't weigh any more, any less than it used to. I don't want to change the action. I thought about that. It would be cool if you had one that dove a little bit deeper, but for right now, for the 4,000 blanks that I have to assemble, action, weight, everything's going to be the same, but I am going to customize the internals, which I think is pretty cool, with the butyrate plastic. To my knowledge, I don't know if a butyrate bait has been made with a tungsten weight in it, so that might be the first ever combo, which is quite the odd combo, butyrate being a very old plastic that we use to make in America, and then the tungsten being just a newer metal that we've come to love in bass fishing the last 5 years or so, 10 years or so. So that's a really cool opportunity. I'm really excited to show you this to you guys. I've been keeping it under wraps, like I said, just to make sure I don't get handcuffed or anything. So been playing around with it this spring. I really think you guys are going to love it. Got to give me some time because literally I have some prototypes in my house. I completely forgot to bring them over. The ones I made with this, but they're basically no different than what they were making before they closed their doors. I don't have any prototypes with the lead in them yet because the lead hasn't arrived. So as soon as I get those lead prototypes, I'll do them on my end. I'll paint some, I'll produce them, I'll make some for myself, I'll fish them, make sure they're all good, and we'll go from there. So I guess I'll bring up the other thing is, of course, we're using Worth. I don't know what you call these. They come figure eight stainless steels. They're hook hangers. Every crankbait has hook hangers. That's how you obviously add hooks to the bait. So Worth is an American-made company. They make in America. Worth is what Mann's used to use pretty much in the fishing components world. Worth is, that says the world's finest fishing lure components company for a reason. So we're using Worth hook hangers, I call them. Figure out what exact size that they need. That way it fits in the mold and it seals properly. That's a whole other aspect of it, making sure the bait doesn't leak. I'll be doing this all myself. It won't be a whole factory. Just right over there is where I'm planning on assembling 4,000 of these baits. So that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be a fun process, but it's going to be a long process. So you just got to work with me, give me some time. And I did think it would be a cool thing to do once I get those prototypes done with the lead rattles. Like the very first, we'll just call them prototype ones that'll be available to the market. I thought it would be a cool way just because you don't want to you don't want to sell something and not know if it's going to stand the test of time. So what I thought of doing is on that first prototype, I'll do a run for myself, make sure it's all good, do the true testing on myself. Then what I'll do is I will make 30, 40, 50 of the lead rattles. We'll get them finished, sealed, ready to fish. I'll paint them. We'll get them ready to go. I don't think they'll be packaged yet just because I don't know what I want to do with the packaging. I was thinking it'd be cool to do like a red, white, and then a blue packaging and vary that with the silent one knocker and rattling. Say blue is a one knocker, red is silent, white is rattling. Something like that would be cool. But the very first initial release, what my ideas and plans are, this is nothing's set in stone yet. This is literally just ideas I've had for the past weeks coming to paper, for example, is we will put them in the bait club box. That way it'd be a cool opportunity. So to those who, truly love what we've done here, true fans of the brand, it'll allow you to get the very first prototype of the whatever we call the crankbait. I don't know yet. We'll just refer to it as the Babe. So that's probably, I'm hoping on doing that for next month's bait box for May. When we're filming this, it's basically the end of April. When we post this, it'll be a couple days from now. So it'll be May's bait box. I hope to have done by then. I'll have the finished product of this crankbait with the lead in it. I'll have tested them already. Make sure there's no major issues. But those of you who will purchase the bait club box, you'll be kind of my field staff. You're going to test them. I want you guys to be like, don't be afraid to say any issues. You're like, hey, this was an issue I found when I was throwing that crankbait. That's why it's a prototype. I want to know all the issues before I release this to the whole world, available for purchase. So I just want to make sure we get all the kinks worked out. I don't want to just rush it to market. So bait club members will be first ones to get this bait in their hands of the new Frankenstein bait with the old plastic and some new components. So I think that'll be really cool. Of course, what my ideas with Folks Bait Company is. Folks Custom Cranks isn't going anywhere. That's my business. But I thought what Folks Bait Company would be cool is a little branch off of Folks Custom Cranks as an American-made company. The unfortunate thing now with our market, the fishing lure market, is everything's made in China or somewhere else overseas. The only things made in America are soft plastics, and that's about it. There's no real hard baits made in America besides balsa makers, which I've done that before, and I got to give it to you guys who do balsa baits on a big scale. That's a lot of work, and you guys deserve it. So when you see guys charging 20 plus for a balsa bait, coming from me, trust me, it's worth more than that. Carving something, even if you have a duplicator, sand, let alone sanding, I don't have the hands to sand, let alone do anything else. So that's my idea with this. It's going to be a Folks Bait Company bait. I'm proud to be made in the U.S. Obviously, not everything I do is made in the U.S., whether it be a repaint I do from another company or my own series baits, which come from China, just like everyone else. So Folks Bait Company will be probably the only hard bait on the market that's made out of butyrate plastic and made fully in America. Of course, the Worth, Worth makes split rings as well. I'm going to get Worth split rings. So component-wise, everything will be made in America. Hooks I haven't figured out yet. I haven't played with that. I'm thinking, I believe Eagle Claw, if Mason wants to look that up, is still made in America. Completely. They make every hook in America. Now, they make Trocar, of course. Trocar, phenomenal hooks. I just don't know if that's in the budget. Bulk Trocar hooks are like $1 each still, which is insane when you can buy a BKK hook for way less cheaper than, same comparable. So is Eagle Claw still made in America?
Yep. Eagle Claw is an American company that manufactures its fish hooks in the United States. Founded in 1925, based in Denver, Colorado, Eagle Claw is the only U.S. manufacturer of fish hooks. The company has a long-standing commitment to American manufacturing and continues to produce its hooks domestically.
So that would be awesome, just so that bait, you don't have Chinese hooks on American-made bait. That's what I'm thinking. Of course, we'll have to play around. I honestly haven't used an Eagle Claw hook other than Trocar in some years. So that'll be on me. I'll just have to go through, buy a bunch of different models, find a model that I like for this bait. It'll definitely be number 6 hooks on this bait. I find run the best. But you can always play around with it. That's, if they have an EWG style, you can, with an EWG extra wide gap, you can get a bigger hook size because of the shank is shorter. They have a short shank. EWG is kind of the style. These are just a normal round bed treble. So if we go with that, go with the trocar hook, we can play around with a bunch of different models or eagle claw. I'd love to do trocar. I don't know if that's in the budget. Um, you know, of course, it would be awesome, but I don't want to have to sell these for more than what an old baby one minus sells for, of course. So right now, don't put this in stone. I'm thinking $15 is kind of a fair price for this bait when we get it to market. That's what I sold them for in the past, and the reason I'm basing it around that is like when I sell a single stamp baby one minus. Of course, with how everything's going, it might be for more. But in the past, I've sold a single stamp for 20 custom painted, which is a really good deal. When you go buy a single stamp baby one minus, you're paying usually $15 each. So it's not like I'm making a killing on it by stripping it and painting it and putting new hardware on it. Double stamps, I usually sell for 25. I usually have to buy them for $15 to $19 myself. So I'm not making a killing on those, but it's a cool thing to offer those old baits to you. So that's why I think the $15 price is fair. It's going to be the cheapest you can buy the baby one style bait. Even though these came from the direct mold they're all produced in. So yeah, I think that's today's episode. Mason, anything else you want to add in?
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're really glad for the positive comments and good reception we got for the last episode. Really appreciate everybody's time and expect a lot more episodes coming down the pike. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Keep your eyes peeled for the new Folks Bait Club baits and also new Folks baits coming out. So thanks,
Comment
everybody.
what name you think we should name this. Right now we're just calling it the Babe. You know what it used to be called? Just give me some suggestions. Hey, if we like it, we'll roll with it, and if we like your name, we'll send you out some. You can be one of the prototype testers as well. So give us some suggestions of what I should call it, and yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.